Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode 64, and the guest is Kaz McCullough, author of Your Brilliant Uncareer.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
My name's Adam Franklin, and you are listening to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. This is the show for people who love marketing on the web. You'll be taken behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments, and we'll look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. We confess what's failed and reveal the truth about what really works. The show is brought to you by our book, which is also called Web Marketing That Works, and the templates that go with it are all yours. You can get your hands on 33 marketing templates at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Now today's guest is Kaz McCullough, the author of Your Brilliant Uncareer. She also runs a content marketing company called Content Marketing Cardiology in Brisbane. And I met Kaz at the Pro Blogger event at the Gold Coast last year. And we've both got very similar views on the web and on content marketing in general. And her book came out late last year. And it's a really good read. It actually profiles a whole bunch of entrepreneurial women, although the lessons in the book are equally applicable to men. I've particularly enjoyed the book, and that's why I invited Kaz to share some of her thoughts with us on today's show. So let's begin. Hi there, it's Adam Franklin on the Web Marketing That Works podcast, and my guest today is Kaz McCullough. How are you, Kaz?
I'm great. How are you, Adam?
Really well, thank you. Now, you've just written a book, Your Brilliant Uncareer, Women, Entrepreneurship and Making the Leap. Congratulations, that must have been quite a big project for you.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely a big project. In fact, it took me 3 years to write that book, amazingly enough. So, yeah, I think that's the understatement of the century.
So is that 3 years of writing or 3 years of planning and writing and editing and everything else? Talk us through that whole process.
Look, it's interesting because it actually started as a completely different book. I'd written this little e-book about how to start and grow a home-based business, and it was more like a manual than a story. And people bought it, off the website and that. And then people were saying, when are you going to update it? And when I went to update it, I was reading through it and going, this reads like a manual. I can do better than this. And I had been working with a life coach at the time, and she was really encouraging me to get out of my shell a bit and to share more of myself. And I started doing that, and I started just writing down stories, and an amazing thing happened. A whole new book sprouted from that process. And so it took a while because life got in the way. And I also engaged an editor quite late in the piece, which I don't recommend. I actually recommend you engage an editor right at the start if you can. And I think that slowed things down a little bit, plus also just those personal things that get in the way, the mindset barriers that get in the way, the I can't do this and the why me, or, who am I to think I can write a book sort of stuff. And, a lot of that sort of stuff happening. I don't know why it took 3 years, but I'm kind of glad it did because the book is way better for it. So there you go. That's my long answer to your short question.
No, that's great. It does take a lot of time, and even if it's just planning and thinking and getting the ideas and even just the encouragement and reassurance that, people want this type of stuff. It's really good. And that imposter syndrome is everyone gets it, right? But then you think, well, I've learned all this stuff. Like, you've been in business a long time. You've learned a lot of stuff. And what I like about the book is it's a combination of your own experiences, but you also profile 11 women. And why did you decide to profile 11 women as well as actually share your own experiences?
Okay, actually, there's 22 women profiled in the book and 11 chapters.
Yep, my bad. There we go.
No, you're right. I felt it was really important for people to read real life stories about what it's actually like to run your own business, and not from people who are talking down to you. Not that people who are successful would necessarily mean to talk down to anyone. I don't think they would. I think everyone wants to inspire everybody else in business, and I think that's fantastic. But sometimes it's really good to hear from other people who are in it at the same time and at the same level that you're at. And so the stories that I actually share, well, I actually put a call out all over the place, internationally, in fact, for stories. And I was really gobsmacked at the variety of stories that I got back. And some of these women have multi-million-dollar portfolios. Some of them have very, very small businesses earning, maybe mid-five figures. So there's a real variety of experiences, and they're very, very honest accounts. And each of these women, I've gotten to know them, and, they helped throughout the editing process. And it was a little bit excruciating for everybody because it's such a personal thing. But I feel like it really made the book 10 times better than what it would have been had I only told my own story.
And it's really interesting because a lot of marketing books, and this is a business book, but I'm particularly interested by the marketing chapters that you've written, but a lot of marketing books are from people on the sidelines, like people just observing businesses and sharing their views, their opinions from the ivory tower. But what I like about this is that it's real women in business, and it's often different when you're actually running the business and, going through the fire yourself. It's vastly different from the safety and security of watching from the sidelines. So that I really enjoyed about the book. And you also share your own story as well. Can you talk us through your business adventure so far?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, well, I started, my first business was vastly different to what I'm doing now, actually. I'd been in the political birth reform movement in Australia for 8 years as a political advocate, consumer advocate, and had, fought for change on a very significant level nationally, and we managed to make some headway with that. But I got very burned out by that process and wanted to just work with women one-on-one as a birth doula. And so I set up shop as a birth doula. I gathered all my writing that I'd done over the years and put it on a blog and set up a website, set up a brand and called it Mamatopia. And yeah, it was an amazing little business. I just marketed it through going to local events and using the blog, using social media, which was pretty new at that time. And people started asking me, well, how are you getting clients? You don't advertise. And I said, well, I don't know. I guess I'm just writing. I'm writing useful information. People like it. And I'd had a really strong established network within that community already. So that really helped, and was getting plenty of word of mouth referrals, and people were coming to meet me at markets. When I showed up there, I had a retail line as well. I used to make handmade gifts for people, like homewares and things. I even got featured in a magazine once, which was really funny because I don't consider myself to be a textile designer. But it was, I was so chuffed when one of my handmade cushions was featured in a magazine. I just thought that was the bomb. But, I had a few different sidelines, and I guess for me, it was so natural because I'd come out of that marketing world and the PR world, and I'd never been in the advertising world. So it wasn't ever something that I've gravitated towards. And yet I've realized that people still very much were trying to use advertising techniques in this very changing marketing landscape. So I thought, well, I put two and two together, and rather than help everybody for free, which is what I had been doing, I realized, well, I probably should start actually valuing my time and charging for these services. And I did some further training. I did lots of further training with social media mentors and with marketing mentors, and put together my own programs and my own brand. And that's pretty much how my content marketing business came about, was just through that natural process of evolution. And I think too, I realized that, I love birth doulaing. I love attending women in childbirth, but it's very time intensive. And now I'm a single parent with 3 children who homeschool. It's very difficult for me to just get up at 2:00 in the morning and attend a birth in a hospital. I needed to find other ways to earn a living that was going to be more sustainable for my family, for where we're at right now.
And so with your current business, the content marketing business, can you talk us through the types of process you would recommend business owners, and not just women? I mean, the book features women, but it's equally applicable to men, but we might get to that in a second. But what process do you typically take your clients on, and do you encourage people go through to really get the hang of content marketing and make it work for their business?
Yeah, well, firstly, I guess I like to help them see the relevance of it and see how that's going to make a big difference. So you in the past, we've talked about this before, where you describe developing content as an investment. And I really loved that analogy, and I've actually stolen it and used it a couple of times. I hope you don't mind.
Excellent. No, I love that.
Yeah, so, but it's a great analogy because, like you say in your book, when you advertise, you get that exposure for the time your ad is up, and you kind of rely on people seeing that ad over and over again over time. So you have to pay for it. It's very expensive. So when I explain to people that they can market their business without spending any money on advertising, there is prick up because people still think, even now, they still think advertising is going to buy them eyeballs. But actually, in this day and age, it just does not work in the same way that it used to, as you know. So half the battle is actually kind of converting them to that way of thinking. And I find by explaining it as that investment model, it tends to get a lot more traction. Usually people will come to me when they have been doing a lot of marketing activity but not getting any traction at all, not getting new leads or generating any sales. And they will come to me frustrated, thinking, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, something's not working. And so I systematically take them through what they are doing and audit their marketing process and look at where any of the gaps are, where any of the potholes are. And then we set about writing up an action plan. And then we take a really good hard look at their branding and drill deep into who exactly they are, but also who they're trying to reach as well. And by doing those two key things, that informs everything else. And it just lays this really nice foundation for building a marketing strategy that actually will get them results at the end of the day. And what I've found is that the clients I've been working with longer term, like I have one guy who's a pool builder who's actually featured in the book. And they called me up. It was classic. They called me up last year and they said, we don't know what you do, Kaz. I mean, we know you do our social media and all that, but we don't know how you do it at all, but we know it works. So just keep doing it. Because they were getting all their leads through Facebook and through their website at that point. And previously they'd been spending up to $15,000 a year on advertising with no return on investment. So that was a big thing for me, and it was massive because I realized, if people actually invest in doing this, it works. But they've got to be committed and they've got to see it as a longer term investment, not just a quick, 3-month marketing fix. It doesn't work like that, as you know.
Yeah, I found it difficult personally because it's a bit like, I tried to use the analogy, it's a bit like getting fit. You can do exercise for 2 weeks and it's just going to be painful, you're going to be sore, it's not going to be much fun. The same with content. Like you can actually write articles, do podcasts, do videos, and you might publish them on the web, but no one will see it for the first time you do it, and that can be very disheartening. Whereas you can just tip money into ads and you might see, 1, your ad in the paper, or 2, you might see a Facebook ad or a Google ad. How do you help explain to customers that, or to your potential clients and your existing clients and readers that, to get through that dip or that chasm that they've got to, I guess, tough it out with as they turn off their advertising dollars and sort of build that content?
Yeah, and customers get very nervous about these sorts of things, and understandably so. It's a whole new world and they're in uncharted territory. I share case studies. That's the best way to explain how it works, because when they see it in action and they see how it works for other clients, it's much easier for them to project that for their own business as well.
Nice, yeah. And how about some of the things that they've been doing wrong, like either, if they've attempted social media or, blogging or all these other tactical things, like a lot of people you said were making mistakes and then come for you for the overall strategy and the implementation of it. What are some of the things that people might be doing wrong that they don't even realize they're doing wrong?
Oh, look, there's lots of things. Usually it's really small things like leaving off a subscribe form on their website, something as simple as that, or hiding it somewhere where nobody can find it. Not making it really visible, not using pop-ups judiciously, and I say judiciously because I have a love-hate relationship with pop-ups.
What's your take on them?
Well, I like to use them. I don't like to fill them out, if that makes sense. I like to use them as a marketer, but I don't like it when they pop up when I'm reading something. It depends. I mean, as long as they don't pop up straight away, I don't like it when they pop up within 10 seconds of you actually trying to read something. Like if you're on Twitter and you're trying to read an article, all of a sudden this pop-up fills up the whole screen, and if you can't minimize it, then you can't read the article. So I just flick off. And yeah, so it has to be done well. That's my take on it, basically. Yeah, so I think also with social media marketing, people still have this mindset that they have to sell and that they should be self-promoting at every opportunity. And they, if given permission to do so, like in Facebook groups, they will because they think that that's the best way to get the word out about their business. But the reality is that it's what other people say about you that counts, not about what you say about yourself. And so if you can get those recommendations on a roll, have testimonials and case studies in the forefront, you're more likely to be referred to other people. And that's the golden ticket on social media. And a lot of people they still don't realize. And it is kind of like, you kind of feel like a zealot, trying to convert the masses in some ways, because you're standing there going, this is how you're supposed to do it. And, and do I do that perfectly? No. No, I think you would say it. You'd probably agree. I don't think any of us do it perfectly, but I think it's just a constant iteration where we're just constantly trying to improve how we communicate and to get the natural flow of recommendations happening for us. So yeah, often they're just really small things that people do that might be kind of interfering with that lead generation process. And plus the other thing, what you mentioned, tactics. People often approach their marketing very tactically rather than strategically. They look at strategy and they go, oh, it just seems too hard and too big, rather than kind of looking at it more as a big picture view. So when you're trudging up the mountain, you don't see that beautiful view. But when you're at the top of the mountain and you're looking out, you can really fully appreciate all the amazing beauty that's around you. That's kind of how I look at it. It's more like you're seeing the view from the top of the mountain. And if something's not quite right, you see it way more clearly from up there than you would from down the bottom.
Yeah, interesting. That's a nice analogy there, Kaz. It's difficult, right, with the selling part of it, because we need to be marketing our business and we also need to be making money. And the only way you can make money is by selling something. So they're either buying your services or your products. So it is a very fine balance, isn't it, between teaching people how to, attract people in so they want to buy, as opposed to selling to them. And I agree that selling in social media, as a general rule, is kind of frowned upon. I know there's a lot of people that can and do, and it really depends how you define selling as well. Because I think education and teaching people is the best way to sell, because that way they come to you, they buy stuff from you, and they're pre-sold. So you're really attracting people who you don't need to sell to by virtue of the fact that you've added value and you've trained them and educated them for free with your content. And then they're keen to get the more premium level of service. But I guess some people do fall into that trap of taking that advertising mindset, which is, as you say, has always been there and has worked for a long period of time, but doesn't work as well anymore. But without knowing any better and without understanding how the web works these days, is that they'll take that look at me, listen to me type of attitude and blast that through social media, and they might see a Facebook group as 300 or 400 people who might buy their products. So let's tell them all about the product. But of course that does more damage than good, because people go, well, who's this spammy person? This isn't how you operate in an online world.
Yeah, that's so true. I think part of the reason I wrote the book was just out of sheer frustration with people giving up on their businesses, people struggling, to make a living out of them and not seeing the wood for the trees. And I kind of just wanted to say, well, look, you know what, I am not a millionaire. I'm not in my ivory tower. I'm here in the trenches with you, but I may be a few steps ahead. I've still got a lot to learn, but I have something that I can offer you that's going to help you not make these key mistakes. Hiring people without doing your due diligence, to do your SEO and all these other things. Really understanding if you're going to sign up for a marketing program or some kind of training program, do your due diligence, actually research the person, really look at how they're interacting with people all the time, not just when they're trying to sell something. Yeah, I mean, things like that, because it's so easy. I've known people who just got caught in this trap where they do program after program after program, and there are so many programs out there, and you can totally just spend all your money on that and not make anything, because there's so many good quality programs out there. And there are good quality programs, no doubt about it. But you don't have to do them all, and you don't have to attend every event.
Yeah, and you can't, because you've got to implement. I mean, if you spend your whole time, learning's great, but it's also a procrastination tool a lot of the time. And if you go from book to book or conference to conference and program to program without then stopping to actually implement the stuff you've learned, then it's just a form of intellectual entertainment and procrastination. And learning plus action is where the real progress happens. So that's such a good point. Where would you recommend people start off? I mean, we talk a lot about blogs and websites and content marketing and also social media. Where should people be focusing their attention if they're just starting out?
That's a really good and hard question to answer. I think you start with your research. I think people underestimate the value of research. I get new ideas all the time because that's how my brain is wired. And so what I do when I get a new idea that I really want to pursue is that I start to just kind of nut out the basics of what it is and who it's going to help to start out with, because there's no point coming up with an idea if it's not actually solving a problem for somebody. And then I just start asking around people in my industry, people I know, just getting some feedback on the idea. I start looking at the feasibility. I start looking at who else is doing anything even remotely like it. So you do a competitor analysis. So all those basic business planning things. And, you know, we sort of talk about business plans like they're some kind of big monster. They don't have to be. My first business plan was, I think, 6 pages long. And now, like, I use a communications framework with my business planning, which I outline in the book, because I find that it's very action orientated and it breaks it all down into very actionable steps. And I actually use that framework when I do strategies for my clients as well. And then we put budgets in it as well. And it's amazing how effective that is, because it just breaks it right down for them, makes it really easy for them to implement that strategy at the end of the day. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but first steps, just really, you know, look at the landscape, do your research and look at the need for whatever it is that you want to do. Don't just fly in there and go with your great idea without actually looking at whether it actually helps anybody or solves a problem for somebody, because then, you know, you're just wasting your time.
Yeah, just on that, what sort of time would you recommend? Because we just spoke about, you know, going from program to program and not actually implementing anything. I know a ton of people who have been planning and researching and stalling and procrastinating their idea for years. And very often these don't see the light of day because, you know, at some point there's got to be that leap of faith where you commit and launch. What sort of, I guess, research and planning time frame are you talking about before going ahead and actually plunging into it?
Oh, look, you know what? If I was Dan Norris, I'd say 1 week.
What if you're a normal, non-Dan Norris style person?
Yeah, he's more hyperactive than I am.
That's Dan from WP Curve, for listeners who are familiar with Dan Norris. He's been on the podcast before and also on your podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, look, I don't think you need to spend too long. I think you just need to get in and muck in and do it. But I don't think you need to spend like months on end doing R&D. I think if you wait for everything to be perfect, you'll never start. And I have a friend who's a very skilled social media manager and has started up a social media training school. But I don't even know if she's fully launched it yet. And she's been talking about it for years. And God bless her, she's wonderful. But I don't know, there's this sort of quest for perfection that we sometimes get caught up in. We want everything to be absolutely perfect, and it's never going to be. I started out this business that I'm running now with Content Marketing Cardiology. It wasn't even called that. I just started a course. I literally put it together, just the framework of the course, and launched it and had 4 people sign up for it. And went, right, okay, well, let's run. And I ran it and I built the course as I went. I hadn't even written the course when I launched it and people would sign up for it. Like I'd maybe written the first section of it, but everything I built, all the templates, everything, worksheets, everything I built on the fly as I went. And that now has formed the basis for everything that I do, which is really interesting. If I hadn't done it that way and just dived in, I don't think I would have ever started. Like I think I would have just waited forever and then somebody else would have come along and done it. And other people will. I mean, this is the thing. People will, if you're seeing a need for something, if you don't get a reasonably fast start, then other people will come and do it. Yeah, because it's obviously a worthy idea. And I know, looking at the podcasts, I was looking yesterday on New and Notable and how many podcast shows there were on women and entrepreneurship, and there were way more than there were a month ago when I last checked.
And that's often a good thing. I mean, it is a very good thing, because if you're trying to start a business where there's no market, you've got to create the market and you've got to sell products that nobody knows about and that they don't even know that they need yet. And I've tried a couple of those in the past, and it's hard work. And those businesses never really, they didn't take off. Whereas I think if you are starting a business or even, a podcast or a book about women entrepreneurs, and there's an existing market, lots of podcasts, lots of books on Amazon, lots of existing businesses, that's great because there's a demand. Just like, there's lots of accountants and lawyers. Of course there are, because there's a big market for it. And it makes sense to go into existing marketplaces, because then all you need to do is differentiate yourself compared to the competition, which is a lot easier than creating a marketplace in the first place. So when people ask me questions about starting a business, often I say, but the idea's already been taken. Somebody else is already doing this. Well, of course they are. That's good. That means there's a market for it, and you should go into that business, not disregard it, and try and create something new, which I think is actually quite a big misconception, that you need to have this original idea and create something that no one's ever done before. To me, that's a massive red flag, because it's going to be so hard to get that started.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, and I hadn't really thought about it like that, actually. But the other thing too is that a lot of people get discouraged and they go, oh, there's too many competitors out there. And I really want to kind of turn that notion on its head. Yes, we compete, but we're not necessarily competing with people in the same field. We're competing with all the other things that get people's attention. And we need to look at people who are doing similar things to us as colleagues, as potential collaborative partners, rather than competitors, and reach out, throw an olive branch, ask how we can help them. Because when we do that, then we're building this collegial relationship with people, and that is going to benefit everybody. Because at the end of the day, there are going to be people who will gravitate towards you, Adam, who really like your style of teaching and marketing. And there's going to be people who will gravitate towards me because they like me better. And it's not because you're better than me or I'm better than you. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just purely that what we do and how we do it particularly resonates with those people.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I agree with you. And that's what I particularly like about our industry, the web/content marketing industry, that everybody is so friendly and supportive. And when I advocate some of those ideas to clients, sometimes they go, what do you mean link to a competitor off my blog, or even talk about a competitor? And they've got this very adversarial, competitive, don't share anything type of view. And I think, particularly on the web, I think that is very closed-minded. People that succeed on the web, I tend to find are very collaborative and very generous in sharing. Because at the end of the day, I think the biggest competitor to what we do and to what a lot of businesses do isn't the other people in the marketplace. It's the person who may buy from you deciding to do it themselves. For example, in our line of work, people can write, everybody can write words in a Word document. Doesn't mean they're good copywriters, doesn't mean they're good content marketers, but the biggest competitor I think we have is people who think, well, I'll just do it myself. And as opposed to hiring you to help advise them on their overall content strategy, people are just thinking that they can do it themselves. So if we all collaborate together and spread the content marketing word, then I think there's a lot of value in that, because by sharing advice and our experiences for free on shows like this and on your podcast, we actually can help the people who would consider doing it themselves to come and actually seek guidance from companies like from yours and mine.
Yeah, that's right. And you kind of don't want it to be like a last-ditch resort when they do come to us. Sometimes it is. sometimes it's I've tried everything and nothing's working and I've spent all this money, help me out of my big hole. And, I kind of wish that people wouldn't leave it to that point sometimes, because I think, sometimes just coming in from the beginning and recognizing that you do need that help and expertise, and that will set a really strong foundation for what you build, can be very, very beneficial.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, Kaz, what's next on the marketing front for you?
Okay, well, as you know, I've just launched my own podcast, which is in alignment with the book, and it's to share even more stories and more expert tips with readers and with followers of the book, and also followers of my content marketing consultancy and my blog on there. So I've got a couple of courses that I run, and I want to just kind of get my own marketing funnel working for those as well. I've really worked hard on my branding this last year in terms of with the book and just getting everything, all my ducks in a row with my marketing. And so this year it's about getting those marketing funnels in place, doing a new business plan, and getting some new courses up and running. So that's my big plan for the year. How about you?
Oh, yeah, look, my plan is we're really trying to scale up this year. We've got an Infusionsoft upgrade. Well, we're rolling CRM and everything into the Infusionsoft platform. And once that's done, what Toby and I are really keen to do is get our templates out into the hands of as many people as we can. So that is going to be a project that we kick off once we've done our website CRM upgrade. And so that'll probably be the strong focus this year. Another project is also on the networking, connecting with people in our industry. So using the podcast to chat with lots of interesting people like yourself, and really doing a lot more of the in-person and phone style relationship building. I personally enjoy it a lot, and there's so much to learn. There's always, as we were saying before, the web as an industry, people are very friendly and generous and collaborative. So I'm really keen to use the podcast as a platform for sharing the conversations that we have with people and sharing them on the podcast and reaching out to interesting people to come on. Yeah. So they're the two sort of projects we're looking at this year.
Cool. The other thing was I wanted to mention that I am doing quite a bit of professional development work this year as well, where I'm actually invested in going to Chris Ducker's Tropical Think Tank in May, and I'm really excited about it because just spending that quality time with some really key influencers like John Lee Dumas is speaking there, and I think Nick Unsworth and Dan Norris is also going, so I can go and give him a hard time, and Darren Rouse and Sue Zimmerman, some wonderful people who I'm just so keen to learn from. And I'm really excited about that because I'm not a big crowd person, and so the idea of going to a big conference for me is a bit intimidating, but I'm going to a smaller conference where you really get to spend good time with people over a week. I'm so excited about that. I'm ecstatic. And yeah, so doing a few projects like that as well, I think it's going to just stand the whole business side of things in good stead. And firming up my email marketing. I mean, I've learned a lot from you and Toby about that and just been watching what you do. And we've had a few conversations about that too. And I need to get that happening in a bigger way and more structured and, I'm just like everybody else. I'm just trying to improve how I do things just like everybody else. And it's just a constant process.
Yeah, it totally is. And that's, and as we've learned on our respective journeys, it's do one thing, get it right. That is a building block into what you're doing as a business and as even just the marketing function of the business. You can't do everything at once, and it's part of the fun. Hey, you can just pick a project, learn it, do it, meet the right people in that area that can help you the most, and that's what makes it really fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Kaz, final question for you is, have you got any closing thoughts or final pieces of advice or anything else you'd like to get off your chest before we call it a day?
That's a big question. I think I like the way that you frame this whole podcast as marketing experiments. I really love that because, and I know I mentioned this before, but just, people lack confidence. I think they get in their own way when it comes to making decisions about their business and doing their marketing. And I just want to encourage you to get out of your way, basically, and to believe in yourself a bit, because why not you? Why can't you be the one who succeeds? Why can't you be the one who's famous for being absolutely amazing at what you do? Why can't you do all the things that you've dreamed of. There's no reason. Anyone can achieve whatever they want. We just have to, sometimes it's not our circumstances or other people that get in the way, it's ourselves. And, the final chapter of the book gives some strategies on how to overcome those mental and emotional barriers that sometimes get in our way. And I think sometimes that's half the battle. We kind of, like that imposter syndrome that you were talking about before, we sometimes think, well, who am I to do this? I'm not worthy or I'm not skilled enough. But actually, you probably know way more about what you do than you think, and you're more expert than you think. So get out there and do it.
That's a very nice way to end the show, Kaz. Thanks for sharing that. And how can people find out more about you or connect with you personally?
Okay, so the best place on social media to find me is actually on Twitter. You can connect with me. I've got 2 Twitter handles, but the best one's probably just my name, Kaz McCullough, so CASMCCULLOUGH. If you Google Kaz McCullough, I think I'm the only one. So I don't think I'll get confused with anybody else. And so that's where I hang out the most. And in terms of websites, I have my websites in my own name as well, kazmccullough.com. And I also have the website for the book, yourbrilliantuncareer.com.
Awesome. Well, I shall link to all of those in the show notes for the listeners. And thank you so much for coming on the show, Kaz, and I look forward to our next chat. And that's a wrap for my chat with Kaz. Always fun talking with her. And in fact, I was just a guest on her podcast as well. So there's quite a few other stories. If you head over to Your Brilliant Uncareer podcast in iTunes or Stitcher and track down show number 6, where Kaz turns the tables on me and quizzes me about Web Marketing That Works, the book. During that interview, I actually had this one question I thought to ask during one of Kaz's answers, but then when it came time to asking the question, I completely blanked out and couldn't remember what it was. So of course I remembered after we hung up the call, but it was basically, well, I can't obviously ask her now, but I'll give you my 2 cents worth, but it was along the lines of being careful who you take your advice from when it comes to content marketing and web marketing. For example, you get so many emails and contact form inquiries from SEO people, for example, who claim to be able to do all these wonderful search engine optimization things for your website, but very often if you actually go to Google and type in their name or type in their company name, you don't actually see them. Or sometimes actually when I've done it, I've Googled them and then I find them on Ripoff Report or one of those types of scam reporting websites. And I've asked them, I humoured them one time, I took a call, I agreed to a call anyway, and I said, mate, I tried to Google you and all that came up was your listing on the ripoffreport.com. And he said, oh yeah, but that's just our competitors trying to sabotage us. We do such a good job that all our competitors are out to get us, so that's why you're reading these things on the Ripoff Report. So anyway, so dodgy. And then he wouldn't stop talking. I actually ended up having to hang up on him, but no joke, literally 16 callbacks, one after the other, after that conversation. So not the sort of person you want to be doing business with, and that's just one of many examples. If there's people hitting you up about social media, check out their social media. Not to see how many followers they've got, for example, like they are still vanity metrics and I stand by that, but have a look at how they interact with people on social media, have a look at the type of content they share, and if that's the type of vibe that you're going for, if they're doing it in a way that you'd be comfortable if it was your company, then by all means use that as your yardstick to determine whether you work with them. But if they're just spamming people or if they're just doing things that you wouldn't want happening in your business, then use that to rule them out. Same goes for email marketing and web design and everything else. So check out who you're working from. It can be a real zoo out there. And if you've ever got any questions or stories or things you want to report back to me on, you can reach me at adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au, or you can tweet me at Franklin_Adam. So thank you for listening to the show. It was brought to you by mine and Toby's book called Web Marketing That Works, and specifically brought to you by the 33 free marketing templates that go with it. So they're all yours. Jump over to bluewiremedia.com.au/book. And if you're a regular listener, you will know that our intent with these shows is to deliver actionable advice So your feedback and questions are always welcome. You've got my email, I just told you that. And if you enjoyed the show, and I hope you did, I would love it if you could leave us an honest review on iTunes or Stitcher. It really does mean a lot to us to hear listener feedback, but just as importantly, it helps raise our visibility on iTunes so that we can continue to get good quality guests like Kaz and like many of the other guests that are in store for you coming up soon. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. You have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next show. See ya.